Why is the market down? I will tell you 4 or 5 things that you maybe haven't thought of. I saw 2 of them over the weekend, and I got that very sick uh-oh feeling. You need an explanation as to what's going on and what you should do next and when you should do it. You are in the right place. This is the Market Update, and I am your host, Bill Noble. Please like and subscribe. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are live every weekday morning at this time. In this market, the way it's trading, you can't afford to miss a show. Also, we have a YouTube VIP member area where we just did a podcast where you can get excellent guidance as to what to do going forward. But right now, I will help you in exchange for a like and a subscribe. So let's begin. Don't go anywhere. Problem number 1. The Federal Reserve puts $29 billion into the system, injecting it to help somebody. And everyone in crypto goes, oh, look, they put money in the system. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then the Treasury Secretary gets on Sunday morning television and says, we're in a recession. Now, anyone who has to buy groceries knows we've been in a recession for at least 2 years, or anyone trying to get a job. But it's really funny that we had the orange man going on Air Force One saying, you know, we have the greatest economy in the history of the world. And then Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, a former hedge fund guy, goes on talk shows and says, you know what? We're in a recession. I'm like, oh my God. Then, to make it more surreal, I'm looking at a tweet from the Defense Secretary, who 1 minute is doing FAFO, and now he's doing, oh my God, we have this amazing relationship with China. I talked to the Defense Secretary over there. We're going to play golf. It's just a love fest tweet. I'm like, okay, so let's review. Stay here, and then we're going to get to the big one. Actually, the 2 big ones, okay? So they put money in the system. Someone's in trouble. We don't know if it's a crypto player or a legacy player. There's a huge case for it to be a bank. It could be related to Binance or related to the thing I just explained to you or will explain to you. Now, the Fed is putting money in the system, like I said, because there's a problem. Bessent is telling you we're in a recession because we got a payroll number, a jobs number coming up, and you can assume that that jobs number is horrible. And they have a problem in the system. And you can tell the administration is trying to wrap up this whole China thing and the tariff thing and put a big, shiny, happy face on it. Because if they don't, the Fed and the Treasury are not going to be able to focus on whatever problems are out there. So they're trying to clean everything up and soften the blow that's coming. Like I said, the shutdown can be connected to a bank problem, right? It's very simple. No one wants to lend to each other. Everyone's like holding on to their money because there aren't dollars circulating in the system. Uncle Sugar isn't spending any money. The government is shut down. This is causing massive stress in the banking system where there's tons of bad loans. And I'm sure you know people who have walked away from cars and credit cards. And that's been going on for years. And that eventually becomes a problem. As we say, it doesn't matter until it does. Now, what does this have to do with crypto? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 more things, and then you'll know. First of all, blue states in America, they have a bit of a problem with their finances. They like to give things away. So they're proposing a 5% wealth tax. Okay? I call this a bail-in. Not a bailout, a bail-in. What's a wealth tax? Well, they basically, look at your bank account or they look at whatever, and they go, oh, okay, we're just going to take 5% of that. Thank you very much. They may go right in and take it too. This has happened before. It happened during a crisis in Europe, and they're just going to go right in everybody's bank account and shave off 5%. That's it, right? It's called a wealth tax. Now, it may not be just bank accounts. It's going to be everybody's wealth, which could include crypto. Crypto is a very small market, not cushioned by the Fed, open on weekends. So when all this stuff gets out that the blue states are coming for everyone's money, everyone sells. It could be that simple. And of course, there's this event in New York City, which I have been talking about for 2 weeks. Maybe the market knows who's going to win, or maybe the market is getting out of denial as to what that might mean. He can't do everything he says he's going to do, but there's a reason ZCash can't go down. Like I was like, oh, good, market's going down. I'm going to get ZCash at 350. Yeah, wrong. Okay, now how do we put all this together? There is definitely a problem in crypto with people selling as it relates to this wealth tax and possibly something related to Binance. There's definitely a problem in the system. The Fed puts money in. Bessent says we're in a recession. Something is wrong in legacy, which is why everyone is selling everything all at once. Bitcoin's down 3%. Alts are down 10%. Everyone is panicking again. Now, how long can this last? Okay, well, there's a Gann formation coming up. There's actually 2 of them. Okay, the market really isn't safe until the window between the 5th and the 10th. That's the level where you can get, a meaningful reversal on the upside. Now, stay here because now this is not investment advice, and I'm not going to tell you what to do because it's an opinion show, but I'm going to tell you what to do. What is happening here is probably the end of the forced selling from the Binance execution problem. And then what's going to happen is some sort of issue, hedge fund, bank, whatever, will be revealed. And then the stock market will face a reckoning, right? The stock market, there's a huge bubble over there. They cannot tolerate any stress if the employment number is bad, or the Fed's not going to cut rates, or there's something wrong. The biggest risk to crypto is Stonks. Is that Stonks and a lot of these bubble names in nuclear energy that retail has been mooning just turn over and start going down again. This weirdness with wealth taxes and all the weirdness that's going on in the financial system. Ask yourself a question. Why did the Fed just wake up and go, you know what? Let's put $29 billion in the system. They just got done being grumpy pants going, yeah, we cut rates, but we won't do it in December. Oh, by the way, 3 days later, here's $29 billion. Who needed $29 billion? You think that's not a lot of money in trillions, but imagine you had a gap in your balance sheet that was $29 billion. That's a lot of money. Somebody is out of business here. It's either a crypto hedge fund or a legacy institution, which is why everyone turned around all at once and sells because, again, altcoins not supported by the Fed. Everyone panics. Everyone hedges. Boom. Now, how does this end? Does it end? Okay. So you're going to see a lot of like a Wyckoff distribution pattern. It's very clear in technical analysis that Bitcoin looks like big people are selling. And then this is going to roll over and go to 75K. That's the talk of the town. That was everywhere last week. Now it's definitely everywhere, right? I have a better idea. The second we know what the problem is, the issue at the moment is we don't know what the problem is. We don't know who's out of business. We don't know who failed. We don't know who got the $29 billion. And we don't know why Bessent is saying we're in a recession. We don't know, which is toxic, right? That's why the market is going down. That's why it kind of continues to go down. That's the issue, right? Over the weekend, they told us that there was this huge problem. And unfortunately, I had to suspect it because over the weekend, Bitcoin just stopped. If Bitcoin is moving around, it's okay. But when it just stops, I'm like, oh my God, that's like 2018, 2019. And then sure enough, all Bessent had to do was say we were in a recession and I knew there was a problem. Okay. So now what should you do? All right. I don't think Bitcoin can go below 103. If it does, it's going to 98. That's what our Gann model says. If Zcash goes down, the first level that I have for support is 350. I think one of the things that I got from the YouTube member podcast, because I was ready to FOMO into Zcash at 400. That's probably how you knew it was a top. You have to be careful about buying stuff that's already up. because, they're selling the losers right now. And if this continues, they may wind up selling the winners by the end of the day. And that includes Stonks. I think if you see Bitcoin at 103, you take a shot on the long side. That's what I'm going to do. If it goes down to 98, you take another shot and then you leave a tight stop and hope it reverses. Because when Silicon Valley Bank failed in 2023 because of losses related to high interest rates, which, by the way, are all still around on these bank balance sheets. They've been living off the Fed. So if somebody goes out of business or there's some kind of huge problem, yeah, crypto will go down like it is now. Legacy might freak out like they might later. But in that instance, Bitcoin stopped and went straight up for like 4 weeks. Same thing happened with the tariff tantrum, right? Fear, greed, and equity went to zero. That's how hard stocks went down. And then towards the end, when stonks were down 3%, Bitcoin turned around and went up 3%. Now, of course, we haven't had a move in stonks yet. However, I would not be surprised to see them roll over and Bitcoin stop at a key level after they wick everybody and then turn around and go higher, right? If this is not related to the Binance liquidation, like if this is not a baby FTX, if we're running in fear of some legacy problem like Silicon Valley Bank, this is probably a buy after they get hysterical. Now, let's talk about your bags. So people are losing their mind. The thing was going up, things were looking good. And now all the stuff that was up last week, like I'm looking at virtuals down 15%. People with altcoin bags are losing it, rightly so. Okay. So some ideas. I think there are going to be quality altcoins that they're going to discount to a point where when they turn around and spike back up, you're going to have massive moves. Some of these dormant altcoins were popping off 40 or 50%. If they hit this thing for 3 days, the ensuing rallies could be unbelievable. Now, that's if you can hang on. If you can't hang on, get this to where you can sleep at night and pay your bills or rotate to Bitcoin. Because I know as soon as you see what problem is out there, all these characters with these cool chart formations, which are very cool, right? They're very cool. They all point to 75 or 80K Bitcoin, and that's great, except for the fact that Bitcoin is the only asset that's going to make sense, particularly after they just got done mooning gold. There's one thing you have to remember about Bitcoin versus gold is if this is some sort of event in the system, right? The overall system, right? The Fed pushing $29 billion in, right? All the winners are going to get sold. They're going to sell all the winners. They're going to sell stonks. They're going to sell all the hyper speculative stonks. They're going to sell gold. When hedge funds have to sell, when markets get volatile, their risk management models tell them to sell anything, everything, right? They started with crypto because crypto was open. That's it. So when the forced selling comes to a conclusion, it will most likely come to a conclusion in crypto first. So survival is key. Now, I think the way this will play out is if ZCash holds a bid, that's actually bearish for the rest of the market. I think if ZCash actually went down, the rest of the market would recover. Like Dash was the same way. Like Dash scared me over the weekend. Historically, when ZCash, Dash, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, when they're mooning by themselves, it's negative, right? And of course, Dash doubled. The baby Bitcoins with privacy are off to the races for probably a multi-year uptrend. Okay. However, those coins being kind of like the 1 and 2 coin market, like when people want Zcash more than Bitcoin and when people want Dash more than Ethereum, the market's got problems. Like that was the warning, right? Fed puts money in, Dash doubles, Bessent a recession, cleaning up China, wealth tax, New York event, change of power. That's the end, right? Now, that said, when people get hysterical, like I'm going to tell you right now, Like we have certain buckets. That's what my co-host calls it. We have lined up the buckets and we know exactly what we want to do when this thing goes down in terms of getting involved in specific sectors and specific coins. And we think the lists that we've put together that are in Patreon Platinum for altcoins that can spike. Now, I can tell you this. We were waiting until it got above like the 5 or 10-day high before we got excited about spikes. That only happened really in virtuals and a little bit in Aave. However, that work still stands. And with this decline, the new 5 or 10-day high, okay, is going to be a lot lower number. Interesting, right? And the longer it goes on, the lower that threshold gets. Now, naturally, you're going to want to see the coins that can spike the most. We have a master list, which we showed. And then ace analyst Toby picked the ones that she liked. That's in the YouTube member area. The bottom line is the second the selling stops here, right? That's today. That's the 5th. That's the 6th. The day it stops, in my opinion, it's literally going to go straight up because this is forced selling because of, you know, what we'll do it two ways, right? Binance, banks, or the blue states. Binance, banks, blue. Somewhere in there, there's the catalyst. And when you find out, and if someone is out of business, right, the second that hits the tape as to who it is, as soon as you know who it is, it's over. You know, and, you know, I can start from the top down. The case for ZCash is epic. The case to pay 400 really isn't. But, you know, that I don't think that's the number one trade unless it blows through 400. I think the number one trade is Bitcoin on the way down at 103 or slightly lower. Because everyone has underestimated, everyone has forgotten about Silicon Valley Bank with just how much that can go up. And there's a guy, Robert Kiyosaki, you know, he's like the crash end of the world guy, gold, silver, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. Right? Don't forget, and this includes Hedera and Litecoin and stuff like that. No one has touched Solana. There are all these ETFs out there that if stonks go down, right, crypto may go down for like a day or two, and then they're all going to find those crypto ETFs. We were talking about this last week, right? If stonks roll over, if the problem leaks into stonks, they're going to find these crypto ETFs. So obviously the market's down right now and no one wants to touch it. Fine, right? SUI down 8%. Like the market's radioactive and honestly, they could panic, right? Zcash has not had a wick down yet. You know, Bitcoin, they could attack 100K. Just remember a year ago, everybody thought 100K was a party. It was the beginning of the strategic reserve. Literally November a year ago, the move above 90 to 100, everybody was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in human history. Now it's going to go to 100 and everyone's going to get hysterical. You know, the humanity of all this is funny. The P&L situation isn't. I get it. I get it. Particularly since I was constructive last week. You know, I was like, wow, this stuff really looks cheap and it could spike. And then everything goes down 6 or 7%. This market is, you know, the bear market is not allowing people to stay in their positions. And ironically, the bull market in Zcash and Dash is not letting you in, right? Bull markets don't let you in. Bear markets don't let you out. We actually have both of them going on at the same time. I think a Zcash or Dash correction would be bullish. I think the case for Bitcoin just got better because we know something is wrong if the Treasury Secretary is setting the expectations about a recession and no one said one word about it in crypto over the weekend. I haven't heard one word. Now, they'll eventually start putting all this together, but they have not done so. Now, let's try to talk some TA, okay? The fact that ETH failed at 4,000, obviously not a good thing. On a tactical chart, ETH has hit support at 3,600. So there is some support for big cryptos here. Okay. In Bitcoin, the discount zone on the 89-minute chart, there is support at 106. You cannot discount. You can pretty much count on that bears are going to go for the big liquidation below the Binance lows, right? They're going to want to go take it to 104 or 103. And then they're going to go for 100 if this market is still down at, say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? In other words, if this is crypto specific and doesn't affect legacy, only the higher power knows what they're going to do to it after equities closed. They're going to go for the wick, or there's just going to be another round of liquidations, but it does warm my heart to see Monero up for the day. The privacy theme is on. No meaningful downtick in Zcash. Now, that doesn't mean there can't be one, because be mindful, right? They're going to sell the winners. And I think, and I know this is very difficult for people because a lot of people are wrecked. But if you have cash, this could be a dream in 3 days, because the relative value of crypto versus equities was a joke coming into this. And crypto as a disruptive force that makes the movement of money, as one colleague said, that makes the movement of money faster. And then there's the tech and money component of crypto as well, including DeFi. People are going to become very interested in DeFi if a legacy bank has major problems. Okay, John is saying ICP is popping up. Johnny Bravo says Tau is outperforming Bitcoin. That's not an accident. Paul says we're going to go down 30% today. You know what, bro? That's not stupid, right? If there's something wrong and we don't know what it is, this was like the yen carry trade in August. If there's something wrong and we don't know what it is, the market can lose its mind, right? No one was expecting this, right? No one figured this out over the weekend. And even if you did, what were you going to do about it? You blinked and the whole thing was down. It was not on my bingo card for the Treasury Secretary to say we're in a recession after the Fed had to plug a $29 billion hole. Okay. John says Litecoin at 85 is a great buy. Okay. White collar warrior doesn't like crypto. Like, wait until the electricity goes out. This is the type of stuff that you hear near lows, right? And of course, a total revulsion, right? Like, get away from me with this. That's very important, because that's what happened in Stonks at the bottom in April. Now, again, if Stonks roll over to this gentleman's point about a 30% drop, that's not my call, but you can have people get hysterical here because this is so unexpected. I didn't expect it. All I can tell you is on a tactical level, you need to be watching 106 in Bitcoin. I gave you the level in ETH. Let's pull up XRP so people can get some kind of idea of what's going on there. Okay. XRP at a tactical level has good support at 240 and some pretty good, Lux Algo reversal signals. So there's some hope XRP holds 240. If they cannot run the stops, this could be very interesting in the big coins. Big coins never went up, right? This is what worries me a little bit, right? There was no bid last week. Alts were popping off like dandelions, but big cryptos couldn't move at all. At all. Scary, right? But, you do have some technical support, at these levels. And, it's just a reminder. I know your alt bags are wrecked, but Bitcoin is at 107, and the worst case is a 10% drop. And to be honest with you, a lot of people said, I want to go back to the old days of Bitcoin. I want to go back when Bitcoin was at $300 so I can buy. What you don't realize is they dealt with like 20 or 30% moves intraday. They dealt with 90% drawdowns. Welcome to Bitcoin 2016. You're there. You are absolutely there. And we're waiting for a Silicon Valley bank, waiting for some kind of legacy shoe to drop. That's what I think it is. I follow this guy, Just Dario, and he said 3 days ago, if this shutdown goes past, say, 2 or 3 more days into that possible change of power in New York City, somebody's going to go under. And I don't know how it's connected to crypto. It's connected to stonks. Again, and I repeat myself on that because I think everyone's going to look at this and say what this one gentleman did, that there's something wrong with crypto. Like crypto is somehow bad. It doesn't work. No one wants it. No, I'm not buying into that at all. This is forced selling. People are getting forced out, either a hedge fund liquidation or whatever. This is not people waking up and going, you know what? Crypto is done. I want to buy nuclear energy stocks with no earnings or revenue, nothing. I want to go over to equities and buy the high. No, that is not what's happening. Tyler Hall from the antivirus universe. Congratulations on everybody who got the new airdrop for the Matrix token. Hal Lopez, Warmon, Bob DeBruce. What's going on? Daniel Ortiz. Right, the Matrix, like, I don't know, I guess you could call it a placeholder token. They're going to build McAfee's dream privacy coin, right? That will start trading at some point in the next day or so. Okay. Gary Stewart is liking his life with ZCash and DASH. The privacy narrative is alive and wake. Chase Wright, Yav, welcome. Diego, T-Bone, Spartan Colonel, what's going on? Kim Craig says, Bill, I'm in a Hyundai, WTF. All right, Kim, you just hang in there and keep that thing running. At a low, it's the abyss. This feels like the abyss, right? This feels like the end of the world. Somebody was talking about 30% down. I just get it out of the way. It feels like the end of the world. It feels like the end of crypto. Some guy called me up today. He's like, dude, my sanity, my personal life, I get it. I do. I get it. This is like my living. So if it all vaporizes, it's just as scary for me as it is for you. I don't think buying into that makes any sense because, again, the second you really find out what's going on here, it's going to reverse, and it's going to reverse big, right? Starting with Bitcoin, starting with ETH, starting with all this stuff that is horrendously undervalued. Like, yes, this person is right. You could go down 30%, but the second the bearish music stops, all these small altcoins are going to double. Don't tell me it can't happen because virtuals did it. It can happen, especially after they sell everybody out here. Just saying. Rainy Girl 65. Salute to the orange man. Okay. Demetrius Jones. What's going on? Greg Miller. Right? Slang Gesto. Moon Sector 7. A Spartan Colonel. Thank you. Zepedas. What's going on? Crypto Scam 1. Having a Pengu morning. Shelly. How you doing? John. Find Out Now 7. Paul. Hornet. Talking about ICP, dude, that sector. Oh my goodness. Orange Clown says, hot dog business is profitable. Yeah, bro, we're all on hot dogs and I get why. I understand. However, if you wanted to go back to Bitcoin 2016, here we are. Somebody talked about going down 30% in the fall. The early fall of 2017, when Bitcoin was on a parabolic run, there was a 40% drop. Everyone thought it was over, and then it turned around and screamed to the upside. Who knows? That could be Zcash. That could also be Bitcoin. When you find out what's really going on here, you are going to suddenly realize, and so are all the normies, that this is why Bitcoin and crypto exist. This is why it exists. Do we know what the problem is? No. As soon as we do, as soon as there's an announcement made, it may be this payroll number, right? Now, I know no one wants to wait until Friday, which I believe is when it comes out. No one wants to hear that. I know. How much damage can they do in the meantime? I don't know. Okay, we haven't even had the rollover in Stonks yet, right? Because over there, it doesn't matter until it does. So if you have to protect yourself, protect yourself. If you have cash, you're basically just sitting there waiting to find out what's really going on. And the second you know, like the second Bitcoin goes green with everything else red, that's the signal, not investment advice. That is the market update for today. Thank you for all of our members, Crypto Crazy, Knowledge Dump, and friends, T-Bone, Diego. We will see you later.